question for Tommy. Something that we were discussing yesterday was, how do you make a story compelling but also inform people at the same time? And I'll mute you too. And how can you make a story compelling but still inform people? So how do you teach people but also make them excited?
I have no idea. Many people would argue that I have no clue to the answer of that question. I just do whatever I think is interesting, and hope that if I really believe it and think it's interesting, then other people will.
I think that's a good answer.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it. Somebody, there's a writer, and I can't remember who said this, but said that any storyteller, any writer has to just have this sort of ridiculously huge faith that whatever he or she has to say, or whatever story he or she has to say, it has to be told. And you just have to have that belief, and you have to go for it, and get it out there, and build an audience for it.
Quickly get this out of the way that your iPad app is free and Vision Machine is free. And also, I'll point out that you did one really neat thing, which is you released a version without the text in the speech bubbles, so you can remix your own version.
Exactly. Yeah. The app, we're actually still deciding whether the app will be free. It very well may be free. We may experiment with charging 99 cents for the app just to see if more people will get it as a result. Sometimes there's a theory that if you charge something, that it becomes more valuable to people. So we're still debating that. But definitely if you go to, whoops, I just did visionvision.net. I have no idea what that is. If you go to visionmachine.net, you can download a textless version of the book, and it's been released on a Creative Commons license, which means that you can take that and as long as you don't do it for profit, and you credit and you provide credit, you can take that art and remix it. Hey, somebody's got the book there. That was cool. Brett's holding up the book there. But yeah, you can and you can run with it. You can do your own stories based on using this art and those characters. Have fun. Sorry, I cut you off. I was too excited there.
Yeah, if you guys get really ambitious, you can cut them out and put them in popcorn. So cool. Yeah, I heard that theory too. That like even if you're doing like a punk show, if you charge $1 versus free, it's better. Anyway,
I thought it was really interesting, Greg. When you were talking about the people who built memes out of panels that did in the work, and there was a question from Bayback that I thought was something quite interesting, and I'm sure Tommy would have some perspective on this as well. That you did things like put out a version of the comic that anybody could remix, and you were encouraging everybody to be open to different people doing things with your work that you wouldn't expect. But I wonder, your thoughts on the flip side of that. Like, their specific question was, if you're allowing anybody to tweet and have that incorporated into the iPad app, how do you account for like people trolling, or like what's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, with the iPad app, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know if it's. I mean, I don't know whether we're going to attract trolls. We may. Here's my personal experience has been that if you work on a big book for Marvel, you are going to get a lot of trolls because it's in the public eye in that kind of a way. If you are working on something that's very political, you may get trolls because that's the world in which we live. You're doing independent media, and I have not, I mean, this is just me personally so far, but I haven't been trolled for any of my creator-owned independent media projects in any kind of significant way. You know what I mean? Like, like YouTube, for example, is infamous for having just the nastiest, most awful commenters ever. And actually, Google supposedly is going to crack down on that by trying to encourage people to use their real names and stuff. But I've been fortunate not to be hit by. I mean, maybe it's just that my stuff hasn't gotten to the critical mass. It hasn't gotten into the broad public yet, so that folks who are looking at this independent stuff are folks who are genuinely interested in it to begin with. So we're not getting so many trolls. Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question. In my own, I just also just totally honestly, I don't do Facebook, largely because of privacy concerns, because I don't like the way they change their user agreements all the time, but also because I feel like there's more of an opportunity for folks to post on your wall and for your kind of wall to become publicly filled with vitriol. As opposed to, but I do Twitter. I do tons of Twitter, because if people are going to send me a nasty note on Twitter, the world doesn't see it. You know what I mean? It's seen by the person who sent it, and anybody else who's following that person and me. But most people who send nasty notes are not followed by anybody, so that stuff can kind of disappear a little bit more. You know what I mean? You bring up a great question regarding this particular app. If we have anybody who uses the Vision Machine hashtag able to, tweet something that shows up in the app, then there is that potential for spammers or trolls, and we're going to find out how that works. So that'll maybe I should be more worried than I am.
I think, Tommy, you often deal with subjects that are, they're quite controversial, or they're the kind of things that, you're exploring issues that are on the fringes, like peak oil and things like that. But you don't have the same, like you're in collapses, for instance. There's no way that somebody can contribute work. But what are your thoughts on that? Like how do you make sure that the work can be taken in new directions while still maintaining sort of your authorship or your own sense of decency or privacy or things like that?
I don't have a sense of authorship or decency or privacy. So I really don't care. I'm out to contribute to something, even if it's negative. I figured that stuff will sort of filter itself out. If it's more clever than what I'm doing, then fine. As long as it's coming to that platform, and maybe it's bringing in a new audience to the things that I do. I'm a big fan of openness and free speech, and I'm all for that. And just in terms of like the whole idea of authorship or authorship, if people want to like remix something and make something negative with it or whatever, then they're putting some work into it and they're using it, then they're watching it and they're really sort of contributing to it, and that's all right. And I was a little kid in Texas, and I was just told sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And it's just kind of like that. But I mean, you're competing against so much these days that to get attention, even if it's negative attention, is pretty good. And it means that they're engaging in some way, and that there's a debate, and that's always a good thing. So I don't really care.
Yeah, I've heard there are two things along those lines. I've heard somebody recently posted something on Twitter saying your haters are actually your best fans. That who's reading your work as carefully as the haters? So I mean, that's interesting. Somebody else. I mean, another thing I think about is that sometimes having a well-placed hater is what's going to make, exactly what Tommy says, is what's going to make a movie really, or a project just really take off. The most brilliant example of that, I think, is Justin Lin's career, how it began, basically, or how it really took off with Better Luck Tomorrow. Justin Lin is known these days as the director of a bunch of these Fast and Furious movies. But he back in the day, he made a movie called Better Luck Tomorrow, a little scrappy independent movie. And at the Sundance screening, somebody got up and said that it was an embarrassment for Asian Americans. It was it was actually white film critic got up and said that this was bad in some way for Asian Americans because the kids that were depicted in the movie were hoods. They're doing crime. And Roger Ebert got up and defended the film, and it was the greatest piece of publicity they could ever have. And if that guy hadn't gotten up and slammed the movie, I've wondered since then, actually, several times if it was all a setup, because it would be a brilliant setup. But yeah,
I had a film that was critical of copyright laws, and I was always sort of wishing that somebody would sue me. That instinct, but there's somebody in the chat room that has a more serious question about that. Is that what if you're a woman or LGBT? Then that kind of controversy might be a bit more hurtful. And
yeah.
So many people are driven off the internet or silenced by this kind of harassment. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I guess I know that you even explored some of that in some of your work, Greg, and I don't know where you like to draw those bright lines around what types of controversy are great and which types you want to try and go out of your way to.
Well. This is kind of moving a little off, but you know what? This is perfectly appropriate because we're talking about transmedia, so this is important stuff. I do not put any personal, private information online. I'm sort of online all over the place, but it's my public self. You know what I'm saying? I don't put out anything about my family or where I live or anything like that. And I think that's. Maintaining privacy in that way, I think, is important, exactly as you say, because of the fact that there is a huge amount of racism, sexism, homophobia out there and there are a lot of bullies online who are perfectly happy to dish out death threats. There's a woman right now who who had a Kickstarter for a project that was going to look at sexism in video games, and she's gotten death threats. It's been insane kinds of stuff.
She was on the week. She joined us the other week.
Oh, there you go.
She was our guest 2 weeks
ago.
ago.
Yeah. I just I support her so much, but yeah, that kind of stuff can happen, and I guess my recommendation is to keep private what is private. The internet is, the way I think about it too is that people can be awesome, and the internet is awesome, and my career would not be possible without it. But you have to be aware of, you have to protect yourself at the same time, and so. Yeah, I'm blabbing, but yeah, that's what I have to say.
Oh, yeah, real quick too. I agree with Greg. I haven't been on Facebook in over 3 years, and it is too much information. And there's a complete distinction between work and personal self. But the other thing I want to point out is that this isn't an internet-only problem. These problems exist in the real world as well.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And I had to deal with a neighbor just yesterday who said something. Who assumed that I was a Mexican worker and didn't realize that I was the person who owned the house. And so I just wrote a letter and dropped it off to him. And he felt extremely embarrassed by what he said and what he had done. But these are problems, and a lot of people have to deal with them. But it's not just the internet, it's everywhere.
Yeah. One thing I've also, and this is not always going to be the case because there are crazy people who will do crazy things and come after you for crazy reasons. But there's also a way in which you can present yourself to, I don't know, sometimes if you there's a theory about eye contact, and that eye contact, I was just reading about this yesterday, that eye contact decreases the chances of people lashing out. which is, I guess, different in humans than in dogs. But that one of the reasons why sometimes people act out on the internet is partly because they don't put a human face on the people they're attacking. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking through a lot of this myself. So, but one thing I've noticed is that I made the decision to put myself in these videos that I'm posting on the podcast, and I'm looking directly into the camera. And I notice, and also when they're on the podcast page, people are less likely to post nasty comments than when they're on the Marvel page. That there's something about like this is, I mean, even for trolls, there's a little bit of a sense of that's somebody's living room, as opposed to when it's on the Marvel's page, it's not my living room anymore. You know, I don't know. I mean, not that that's. I just bring it up as an interesting thing, not as as advice of how to proceed. You know what I mean? Because I haven't figured this out either.
Well, there's two sort of interesting questions for each of you guys. One was just that you guys at Bayback were asking a question about comics, but which we should get to. But there was one that I thought was interesting, Tommy, about the technique of how, like, somebody asked specifically what software you like to use, and I don't know, do you use the same software for rotoscoping between projects, or does it evolve so much, or how is that process? Like, how could somebody do a DIY version of rotoscoping?
I think right now, originally we used proprietary software, but I've moved away from that. You can use a lot of the Adobe products, Illustrator, Photoshop, Flash, to do all that. I think that probably Inkscape you can probably use as well. But I mean, there's no great software. I mean, I think of software and computers in general just as a tool, and whatever tool. So I'm not a big advocate in any sort of platform or a method. I just have almost a disdain for it, in fact, and just try to find the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, I did a project. I think it was Eileen, folks out there who asked a question, and I worked with a group of students to do something similar to what Tommy did to this Girl Talk video that you can see on YouTube. And I did use Flash. They just took a series of frames, and I think you actually worked with them on a similar project. I mean, they had done some stuff.
Flash is a really good place to start. Well, until Apple decided.
And then somebody at Bayback was asking you, Greg, about books that you could recommend for folks to start their comics. And I see somebody did put Scott McCloud's book, which is awesome. Everybody should read that. But
yeah, I just uploaded a few things. I mean, I think that any good advice you get about screenwriting applies to comics writing. There's more stuff that goes on with comics writing, but the basics of dramatic writing are the same. I mean, it's storytelling through images and through scenes, as opposed to storytelling purely through text. And so I recommended a couple of books, including Lajos Egri's Art of Dramatic Writing, which is a little turgid, a little hard to start to get into, but I think about that book almost every day, because he talks about the idea of a premise, which is basically a short action sentence that describes the point of your story. So I just thought that was tremendous and really helpful in figuring out what should stay in and what should not be in the story, if it's going to help your story or not. There are, and also, Twitter is a great place to get thoughts about comics writing, because comics writers use Twitter like the office water cooler. just about everybody's on Twitter, and very often comics writers will respond to direct questions about comics writing. And there are also some books out there. Off the top of my head, I don't know what to recommend. Although I did just read Kyle Baker's book, which is really about cartooning. But if you Google Kyle Baker and look up his book, it's very funny and very smart. It's more about cartooning than telling longer stories. It's not really about putting together longer stories. The Scott McCloud books are outstanding and totally worthwhile as well. But yeah.
And I know that, Tommy, it sounds like you got to go pretty quick, but there's somebody at Bayback that has a real specific desire to know whether or not they should be using After Effects or Motion. It sounds like they want to do some of that stuff. So, tool agnosticism aside, what do you think?
Yeah, if I had to choose, probably if I was on a desert island and I only could have one piece of it would be After Effects.
Yeah. Do you guys have After Effects or Bayback? You guys have After Effects? Cool. You guys know how to use it? It's complicated.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the one program that almost no matter what I'm doing, whatever project I'm doing, it's kind of the main engine of the program.
Yeah, in my fantasy world, I know how to use After Effects. That's like the program that I desperately wish I could do, because I feel like I'd be much more powerful if I could.
Yeah, it's like the awesome thing about After Effects is it's like Photoshop with time. The awesome thing.
Yeah, really cool. For the animation in the Vision Machine thing, that was done in Maya, and then imported into Unity, which is really a video game building engine that the app has been constructed in. But the animation there was done in Maya. For just the moving around on the panels that I do in those videos, that's all done in Final Cut Pro, just using the motion tab.
Character development question that Free Spirit's been wanting to ask too. How do you develop characters?
That's a huge question. I think you gotta. I think knowing what a character wants is huge, because a character has to be in motion. You know what I mean? Like a character needs to be moving forward and going for something, and so you can have a really cool character. Just to use a really kind of crude example, if you're making up a thanks so much, Tommy, man, you're awesome. I really admire your stuff, by the way.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your generosity, Tommy. That was awesome.
Thanks everyone. So I'm sorry I have to leave, but I have a 4 o'clock meeting. So ciao. Bye.
Take it easy.
See ya. The character question was, the crude example is like, say you're making up a superhero, and if you make up, you can come up with all the coolest powers or costumes in the world. He's going to be Catman, and he can kill you with his eyes because cats are so deadly. That's cool, but it's not going to do anything unless you know what he wants. Batman is such a successful character because Batman's backstory and quest for justice is so strong, and it will, and you don't know how far he'll go in pursuing that. That gives him a huge amount of direction. The Hulk is so strong, well, because the Hulk is the strongest one there is. But the Hulk is so strong as a character because he's driven by because the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets, and that's both a blessing and a curse. So in order to have a normal life, Bruce Banner doesn't want to be so angry. But then when anything happens, the Hulk comes out, and so there's always this forward motion where Bruce Banner is trying to control the Hulk, or he's unleashing the Hulk, and it gives you stuff for your character to be struggling with. So I think that's a huge thing, finding out what your character is struggling with, if you know that, and if that works on an emotional level, then you have a story.
A couple of follow-ups from there. Bayback folks they're still running Final Cut Pro 7. Is that what you use for the motion?
Yes.
That's cool. I do too.
Yeah.
So we're happy you're still stuck in the past with us, Greg.
I think we're all going to be there for a while because I
Yeah.
don't see 10 solving our problems.
No, it's garbage. And so, just as a follow-up, do you think that if you were just starting to want to make comic books, would you suggest that people spend more time on the sort of story development side or on the, on the art side? Drawing?
Well, if you're drawing, if you are both an artist and a writer, I think you got to be doing both all the time, because you are, if you're drawing your own stuff, then you are. It's like you're learning how to act. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're learning your skills as an actor. In order for a comic to work, it has to work. The story has to work on paper. In words, but it really has to work visually as well. And learning how to tell a story visually, and also learning how to render emotion and render sort of small human moments believably is that's going to be the make or break for your book. I've been rereading a lot of Charles Schultz stuff, a lot of Peanuts stuff, and Schultz was just, I looking back over that stuff, it's just brilliant. Those old Peanuts cartoons, it's just a few lines, and he gets so much expression. And in those introductions, he talks a lot about cartooning and about the fact that you need to know how to draw something in real life in order to figure out how to make it cartoony. You know what I mean? In order to figure out what you're going to whittle away. Anyway, but those things are, I think that if you want to do both, you got to be working on both all the time.
Somebody at Free Spirit has a question that's, she said, in your comics, is there a story sequence, or do you just create stories randomly? Which I guess, if I can paraphrase your guys' question, does that mean, like, do you have kind of a formula that you use to help you to write these things that you plot the conflict into at this point, and then, like, do you have a structure that helps you brainstorm and come up with these awesome ideas?
Well, there's there are a few different ways to answer that, I guess. One very practical thing I'll throw out there is that your average mainstream comic book right now is 20 pages long. And so lots of times most of the time, in fact, that 20 pages is going to be part of a larger story. But within that 20 pages, you also have to deliver a satisfying beginning, middle, and end in order for people to feel like, or 20 pages long instead of 20 minutes. And it has to work on its own, a single comic book. So you've got 20 pages to tell your story, and that limitation right there is kind of helpful because it helps you figure out how much stuff you can do. Then when you break it down by panels, you kind of quickly realize that you've got a certain number of panels per page that is feasible, and that helps you kind of figure out how many things can happen, and then you start to decide what you really need to have happen. So starting, and similar, along with that, there's this idea that at the end of that 20 pages, and at the end of every page, really, you want to have something that makes people keep turning the page. A little cliffhanger, and a big cliffhanger at the very end, something that gets people to come back for the next issue. So, so those are some sort of structural things that are specific comics that come up. Overall, in terms of how to put a story together, and like what belongs in a story, what doesn't. That's where books like the Lajos Egri book become really helpful, because you can think up an infinite number of cool stuff to put in a story. And this applies to, the most serious documentary or the most crazy superhero story. But when push comes to shove, the story's only going to work if it has the stuff that needs to be in there in order to move your character forward, in order for your character to move forward. If stuff is in there that's cool but doesn't do anything for your character, it's boring. We've all been to movies where things are blowing up every 10 seconds and it's visually spectacular, but it's boring. And so that's the challenge, is to figure out how every scene either helps or hurts your character's chances of achieving what he or she wants, so that tension is always there about whether he or she is going to achieve what he or she needs to have happen. And then throughout the story, the stakes are always getting higher and higher and higher. that's a very condensed version of it all. But I think that's some helpful stuff to keep in mind when you're trying to put your story together.
That's great. Well, we should probably go for one more round. Last call in the chat if anyone else has any questions for our esteemed guests. Going once, going twice.
I have one, but it's probably too long to answer.
I can be short.
You have to give yourself a tweet length artistic frame.
The question can be short, but the answers. So like I always think about, like you said, competing for attention. So like one thing that's great about the internet is that your story doesn't have to be. You can tell your story, and maybe someone will find it 10 years later and be fascinated by it because it has a digital spot to live. But how do we know? How do we like figure out the right stories to be told to the right people? You know, obviously there's no formula, and you kind of answered it before when you said, tell it because you want to tell it and see what happens. Hope it propels itself. But I'm always thinking about like such limited attention span of everybody and how that works.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a good question. I mean, there are tons of times when during the course of my comic career, I've written a couple of hundred comics at least. I've probably written 300 individual comic books, and you break your heart over every one. You work really hard to make it work and do your very best. And sometimes your best work nobody notices. Sometimes work that you don't think is your best work becomes insanely popular. And so on to a certain extent, we don't know. You know what I mean? As creators, we don't know what's going to hit and what's not. And stuff that deserves to hit big doesn't always, and stuff that doesn't deserve it sometimes, really goes gaga. And the trick just for your own sanity as an artist is just to kind of shrug and just keep working. You know what I mean? It's like as long as you're working, you're in good shape. At least you're getting stuff out there, and but at the same time, when you are, when you gotta, as a business person and as a person who's building a career, you've got to be building your audience and doing your best so that the work that you really do care about has its best chance of finding its audience. I mean, back when I was distributing my movie Robot Stories, this was my feature film. It was kind of what put me on the map, and we did it independently and distributed it on our own. And I spent 2 years on the road with the thing, hustling every step of the way, doing every event that I possibly could, talking to every group that would have me come in, responding to every email. If Twitter and all that had been around at that time, I would have been incessantly on there. And that's a big part of it these days. There are things that sometimes will just float out there, and the makers don't even know why they became successful. They just do. And if you do enough stuff, that'll happen to you eventually. You know what I mean? That's like that incredible Hercules thumbs up thing. We didn't plan for that; it just happened. But at the same time, you got to be planning for as much as you can, and just always be hustling. Another filmmaker once said that the most talented people that he knew in film school. Some of the most talented people he knew in film school weren't working, but the ones who really hustled were. You got to have both. You got to really work on your skills. You got to and do the very best product you have. But then you got to be shameless, and you got to get it out there. So it's the great thing is that in this world it's a lot easier to do that. With the internet. Back in the day, just sending out 100 postcards might bust you. You know what I mean? And regarding, somebody's asking about Comic-Con. Yeah, I've been to a lot of these Comic-Cons, and they're crazy. I'd probably have more fun if I wasn't there promoting stuff, just because I could wander around more. But they get kind of nuts. But yeah, I actually try to spend a lot of my time in the panels. Actually, for those of you who are interested in Dragon Con is better. For those of you who are interested in writing comics or making comics, Go to the Comic Cons. Don't spend all your time going to the big giant panels. Go to the small panels where they have working writers and artists talking about what they do, because you can learn a huge amount there. BronyCon.
It's a real.
I got a last. If anyone else has any questions, throw them in there. But I got one. Greg, do you know that you have the cool job in the world?
Well, thank you. Yes. Everybody complains, and I complain more than I ever should. I have no right to ever complain, basically. So thank you. Yes, but also, thanks to you guys for bringing me out here. I really appreciate the chance to talk to folks, and for anybody who's reading these comics, you guys you're keeping me in business, and I appreciate it. Or checking out the movies or any of this kind of stuff. The Vision Machine thing, I really do hope you'll check it out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If you go to, I always talk about everything ad nauseum on my Twitter account, so you can always find out about me there or what's going on there. But also for the Vision Machine stuff, I'm going to be updating the Vision Machine website as well once we get the app closer to completion, and you'll be able to find out a lot more there. I don't know if you guys are animation fans, but Phil Lamar does is the lead voice in the Vision Machine comic, and he's known for a lot of the voices he's done on Futurama, and he was on Mad TV back in the day. He was the UPS guy on Mad TV, if that rings a bell. But he's awesome, and he's classing up our voice performances there. So check it out.
Cool. I'm sorry, I might have mispronounced your name too. It's Pak, right? As in Pakistan, not Pakistan.
Oh yeah. It's don't worry, everybody. That's it. It goes through many incarnations, but Pak rhymes with shock. not with jock. No, I can't claim to any proficiency there.
Cool. Well, yeah, we'll be checking your stuff out, and I'm gonna follow you on Twitter.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll just say one last thing: is you guys are really lucky, and you guys are awesome because you are learning about all this stuff right now, and you are at an age, at a time when you are going to be able to do anything you want. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that lightly. I'm not just teasing you. You are literally going to be able to make the movies that are in your head within your lifetime with the technology that's coming, and you guys are really going to do amazing things. So keep learning about it. Keep learning how to tell stories, because when the technology is already out there, and you're going to be getting more of it, and you're going to have a great time.
Cool. I'm taking a screenshot, so everyone's got to like wave. This is our group photo because wave. Don't look at your phones. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, and I think that's actually going to be our last gathering for Storycamp. So before I hand it over to Jacob for any last words, I want to give him a round of applause for being a glorious ringmaster for everybody too. Thank you, bro.
It's been fun. I'm gonna miss you guys, and send more stuff, make more stuff. Like Greg says, keep hustling. My mantra as far as like the technology questions, motion or After Effects. Someone told me. See if I can get this right. There's always a there's never a technical solution. There's always a technical solution there's always a creative solution for a technical shortcoming, but never a technical solution for a creative problem. So think about that. You can always find a way with your tech as long as you have the creative thing. But if your creativity is not there, then the tech won't help you. So I think that's the one. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, make stuff, send stuff. You guys know how to get in touch, I think. So keep doing it.
And enjoy your summers.
Enjoy your summers. Yeah, thanks for spending your summers with us in those lovely crowded rooms, those whirring machines. Best thing ever.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.